Boston College will be a bowl team. We're going to give our predictions on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor and publisher of Eagle Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM. It's a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. We are now at the final show before game week starts. Well, yeah, maybe next week counts a little bit too. But we're going to do our season preview today, our season predictions. You're going to get everything. And no better person to start this off is my staff writer, Mitchell Wolfe of Eagle Insider. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going well. We're so close. I am honestly looking at high school football schedules tonight in my area just because I'm like, I need to see some live football to scratch that itch. So we'll see what Fort Collins High School has going on tonight if I can get in for a reasonable price.
I am so done with going to practices of watching the same drills over in the team. Like, I'm sure they're probably dealing with the grind of it all, but I'm so excited too to like get past all that and get into actual game mode here because we're just we're just over a week away before BC plays Florida State. In actuality, we have 24 hours until we can actually watch a game film of a team BC is going to play against.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about Boston College. We're going to do the offense, the defense, and our predictions today. And I want to if you've listened to this podcast all summer, you've heard my voice enough. This is going to be Mitch's chance to talk about all of it from his perspective. And, Mitch has, his go-to here. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the offense first, Mitch. What are your expectations for this offense? And, I know you made it to one practice, but you've also read a lot of the reports and have been kind of keeping in tune. Will they be able to step up this year?
That's a bit of a amorphous question. I think that they're probably going to be fine. I think it's going to look a lot different than last year, and I think it's going to take a little time to gel, which it always does. It took a time last year, especially because they were installing a new quarterback in a very different offense. I think there will be more continuity, more connection between different facets of the offense, because last year it kind of felt like they kind of just slapped some things together, basically just be like, all right, we've got this running quarterback. Let's throw some things together. And some of them worked, some of them didn't. I think you're going to see a much more unified vision of offense this year in terms of marrying the run game to the pass game with play action, getting the quarterback out of the pocket, allowing Thomas Castellanos to use his legs, not only as a rusher, but also as a passer. I'm hoping that the work that has gone on over the summer with Bill O'Brien, Will Lawing, and Jonathan DiBiaso has improved Castellanos' mechanics so that he is a more consistent quarterback, specifically with regards to like short passing and just kind of keeping the offense on schedule. The running back unit has been a little dinged up here and there. So that's a little concerning. I'm not too worried about it. We'll see if that kind of rears its ugly head as we get later into the season. But I think obviously you're going to see the running game take a step backwards just because you're losing two NFL quality guards, and that's generally hard to replace unless you're Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, what have you. So, you're not going to see them just kind of be able to run the ball well against almost every opponent. And that's fine. I think there's also been some offensive line injuries here and there that have been a little concerning. That is probably going to be pretty rough to deal with early in the season, especially with two road games going to Florida State and Missouri. But I think once you kind of get maybe a little later into September and into the rest of the schedule, that problem might kind of resolve itself, assuming there aren't any other long-term injuries at the offensive line.
So before we get into some more of this, I want to give, this is Friday morning afternoon, we're recording this, some injury updates I think you folks need to know about. Mitch mentioned the running back room. Earlier this week, I'd reported that Kai Robichaux and Turbo Richard had not been practicing. Robichaux had just been out, and Turbo got blown up in a scrimmage on a pass from Grayson James right into the shoulders of a linebacker and had been out for like a week. They're both back now, and they were both practicing at full speed. So they have Dontrell Jones is still out, their other running back, but they should have 4 out of 6 because Alex Broom, we found out today, had ACL surgery in April. And Bill O'Brien says it's doubtful that he'll return this season. So you have 4 out of the 6 scholarship running backs available at this point. In terms of I'll also give you an update on injuries at the offensive line position. The one big thing to note was I asked Bill O'Brien today about Logan Taylor. He said that he feels great today. And they're going to reassess over this weekend, and they hope to have him for the Florida State game. But I don't know. He hasn't practiced yet, so I'm a little bit skeptical about that, but we'll see where things are at there.
Yeah, like even if he is 100%, like you said, he hasn't practiced. So that's going to be tough, especially because he is kicking inside to guard this year with Jude Bowery taking over left tackle. And Bowery has had his history of injuries over the last 2 years, so he might be a bit of a question mark too. So that's definitely going to be something to monitor, especially against Florida State, who has a incredible defensive line. I think Pete Thamel called them the best in the country, which after studying them, they have some new pieces, but it's hard to disagree with. In terms of the receivers, I think that the media outside of BC is really underrating this group. I think Lewis Bond is a very solid receiver. He can do a lot for you in the underneath passing game. I think that Jerron Bradley, even though he's been nicked up a little bit, I think he has a lot of talent. Can be a really special player. It seems like Jaden Skeet is going to be the number 3, the Z receiver with Bond in the slot, and I really like his potential. And then you've got guys like Jaden McGowan, Dino Tomlin, Reed Harris, kind of rounding out the depth there. So you have a lot of guys there that could be contributors. So even if somebody has to miss time, I think you have guys that are talented, that can step up. And a lot of the talk has been like, oh, like they graded out the BC receivers graded out so badly last year. They had all these drops, blah, blah, blah. And if you think about it, 3 of the receivers from last year are no longer with the team. And Ryan O'Keefe, who had to retire due to an injury, Joseph Griffin, who's at Wisconsin, and Jaden Williams, who transferred to Texas State and was generally like the most inconsistent player I've ever seen. So, I think you're getting some addition by replacement, I guess. I think you're going to see a more consistent group there with this, especially because they've been working with Thomas Castellanos this entire offseason, not with Emmett Moorhead and then some of Thomas Castellanos, and then, flipping those after basically in the middle of week 1. So I think that the offense is going to take a little bit of time to, get in the right stride. But I think once you get into the middle of the season and they can get their feet under them, I think they could be a pretty solid group.
In a moment, Mitch and I are going to talk about the defense. We'll get into what they look like and can they make that big jump that they need to if Boston College is going to be successful. Hey, Locked On Boston College fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game I think you're going to love as much as I do, Ultimate College Football Head Coach. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine being the head coach of the Eagles? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staffs to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about this game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the game. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Boston College fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the app stores. Begin your coaching legacy today. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black, and we're talking about this upcoming 2024 season. This is our preview episode with Mitch Wolfe of Eagle Insider. Make sure to go check out his work over at Eagle Insider. Now, Tim Lewis was the biggest question mark of the staff, I think, when he was hired. And he has, over the last 3 to 4 months, really impressed me with what he's done with this defense through what I've seen in practice and getting a chance to talk to him, too. I've really liked what he's done so far in terms of getting this defense up to another level. Mitch, do you have faith that this defense can do that, or are we just seeing a lot of camp stuff?
I won't say faith because it is just practice. And I will say, like, based on your reporting and what I saw, the defense has, I would say, overall gotten the better of the offense the majority of the time, not by a wide margin, but I would say if I had to pick which side of the ball has been better in practice, I would say it's been the defense, which, as we've talked about, I think that on offense, they are trying to get Thomas Castellanos not to run the ball as much, if at all, at practice. So that allows that you take away a major element of the offense that allows the defense to have more success. With that being said, like this unit just has so many question marks and just a very wide range of outcomes. So, with the defensive line, you expect them to take a step forward because last year they were just so bad at converting pressures to sacks. They had I think they were tied for the second fewest sacks in the country. And some of that is bad luck. Some of that is, not finishing plays, not through lack of effort, just like, not being able to convert pressures into sacks. So you expect some natural regression back to the mean there because they were so bad. You're just going to, by luck and happenstance, you're going to be better there. But they were also not the best at just getting penetration in the backfield, getting tackles for loss. Putting offenses behind the chains. So, and there hasn't been a ton of change on that in that unit. The only major switch is getting rid of Chris Banks and replacing him with Sedarius McConnell. So you kind of just like, okay, let's hope they're better, with a different coordinator and position coach. Linebacker, you lose a veteran like Vinny DePalma. So you're losing a lot of intelligence, experience, instincts, but you're essentially replacing with a significantly better athlete in Davian Crouch. So on one hand, good, on the other hand, bad. And the depth at that position is very questionable because it seems like they're going to have to bring Bryce Seal along slowly. And Blackwell's still recovering from an injury last season. So Sione Hala and Owen McGowan are really the only backups of note. So that could get dicey. In the secondary, like I've been talking about, it's a major question mark because it's like you just don't know like what it's going to be because you figure Amari Jackson's a pretty solid starting quarterback, but he struggled last year when he had to be the number one quarterback after Elijah Jones' suspension. It seems like across from him, it's going to be Max Tucker, who was inconsistent last year to when he got a lot more playing time towards the end of the year. And then you've got guys like Braquise Brown, Ryan Turner as kind of the backups, figuring in there. And then the slot position is still in flux between Cameron Martinez and Kari Johnson. So who's going to play there? Safeties, Jalen Cheek is switching positions. KB Price played well in most of his action towards the end of last year, but he's a young player. So, on one hand, if everything clicks, this could be a pretty solid unit. If things go wrong, it could be a big problem. I think that the biggest change with this defense, though, is that with Jeff Hafley gone, you're not going to be seeing such a strong predilection towards a specific types of coverages. You're not going to see it's only single high, cover 3, cover 1. I think you're going to see a good bit more mixing in of different types of coverages, which while I understand Jeff Hafley's philosophy about it, I think at the end of the day, BC didn't have the talent to execute that scheme consistently. And this will force offenses to take more time to think, be like, okay, it's not just if they just look at the defense and say, okay, it's cover 1, it's cover 3. We know what to do. If they're like, okay, it could be cover, it looks like it's cover 1, but it could be cover 2. It could be some version of quarters, could be something else. So I'm hoping that the new defensive scheme will pay dividends in that way. And then that might kind of trickle down to everything where it's like, okay, if the offense is to take another second to recognize what the coverage is, that gives the defensive line another second to make a play on the quarterback for a batted pass, QB hit, or a sack.
So one other name I wanted to give out to folks that stood out to me today at practice as well, that I didn't expect, but Bill O'Brien brought him up the other day, was Carter Davis. I saw him playing a lot of safety today, playing actually for both safety positions. And O'Brien has said he's used him at corner too. So he was in there for Cheek at one point. He was in there for KP Price at one point. So they have him all over the place doing a whole bunch of different things for BC.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Is like right now we just don't know. And for the first few weeks, it could be like a rotation of guys while they try to figure out who is going to be the best when it comes to game time. And it's going to be a tough matchup for the first few weeks because Florida State, even though they lost Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, they've got a lot of talented receivers there still. Missouri has the best wide receiver in college football, Luther Burden III. Western Kentucky is going to throw the ball all over the yard. They're a Conference USA team, and they've lost their best receiver, the NFL, Malachi Corley. But this unit is going to be tested in the first month of the season. Ideally, that will allow them to say, okay, we know who can perform the best right now outside of Amari Jackson. And then once we get in October, November, it solidifies to who the actual starters are. I will say this is encouraging in the fact that if somebody does get injured, there's a lot of guys that have been playing and practicing a lot. So an injury might not be as catastrophic to the unit as, Elijah Jones' suspension was last year, where once he was out, pretty much everything fell apart. And also there were injuries at other places as well. But, it's not like one player is going to, bring down the house of cards like this. It seems like they can have kind of a plug and play, easily replaceable positions in the secondary. Nevertheless, it's still a big wild card in terms of the rest of this team.
I was talking to somebody at BC in the program, and they were saying this is the secondary that Jeff Hafley always envisioned. Like as you just said, like all the different plug and play guys that you have, like multiple guys. Like as you said, like you look at if you start Max Tucker and Amari Jackson, you have two backups that were transfers that you brought in potentially to start.
Mm-hmm.
And you can roll them out. You have Carter Davis you can roll out. We didn't even mention Cameron Martinez, who hasn't practiced in a little bit, but he could roll out at nickel. So they have all sorts of different variations that they could use. And again, as you said, it's going to take a little while to figure that out. I have one last question before we get to our predictions. Who's your biggest X factor on the defense?
I think I could go a few different ways with this. I think that if Donovan Ezeiruaku gets back to his 2022 form, I think that can really elevate this defense. Last year he struggled converting those pressures to sacks. He still had a ton of production in the run game, which is good to see. But if he can kind of get some more of those sacks, that could be a huge thing. I think that obviously getting consistent pass rush from the other defensive end spot, whether that's Neo Ekpala or Edwin Kalengi, that could obviously be huge. I think if you want to answer the question in terms of like the widest range of outcomes for a player, I think it could be Davion Crouch, the other linebacker, because, if he can really if he can kind of continue on the path of what he showed towards the end of last season, it's like, okay, then they have a really solid linebacker next to Cam Arnold, who is not an athletic liability like Vinny DePalma was. On the other hand, if he kind of, with more playing time, he, makes mistakes, he gets confused and has some missed tackles and whatnot, then you're in a really precarious position where it's like he is probably still the best option on the field, because a guy like Owen McGowan is probably more like DePalma in that he's going to be an athletic liability on passing downs, and Sione Hala is, still built like a big safety, and it's going to be tough for him to play on running down. So, if he's in a position where you have to kind of get him off the field based on the situation of where the defense is, that's a big problem. So, like I said, because of how many questions there are, you could go a number of different ways with it, with that question.
All right. So in a moment, Mitch and I are going to give you our predictions for the season. This is something you've been waiting all summer to hear. Don't want to miss out on that. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting your tickets for live events even easier. For me, I like going to shows. I like going to games. I love going to comedy shows. Game Time has that all covered, and it filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Best part about Game Time too, and I talk about this all the time, is their seat viewer. If you're like me and you want to get the best seat that you can for your dollar, Game Time has you covered. You know where you're going to sit. No surprises. It's going to tell you right where it is. So take the guesswork out of buying concert or sports tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem codes LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here. Thank you to all of our first listeners and our everydayers who make this Locked on BC your first listen every day. It means a lot to me that you have made us your go-to place for Boston College sports. And when you're done with this episode, go check out Locked on ACC with Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs. And they give no respect to Boston College, so make sure they hear about it. Check them out wherever you get on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Mitch, it's time for our predictions. I kind of alluded a little bit to mine beforehand, so I'm going to make you go last. I'm going to have you wait because everyone's going to want to know what you think. I'm going to go first, and it's no surprise, as I mentioned earlier, I have sat through 12 of the 20th practices I could get to this year, and I've been impressed with the defense. I think they're going to get better. I think Thomas Castellanos is going to get better. I'm still worried about this schedule. I don't think BC is talented enough to beat Florida State, and I don't think they're going to beat Mizzou. That's 2 losses right there. They'd have to have a pretty solid rest of their season to get to where they, I saw Chris Vanini, what's his name, Vanini of the Athletic, say that they're his mystery team that could potentially go 10-2, and I was like, what? I don't know. I thought it was a joke, but I listened to it. Okay. I think this team is 7-5 written all over it. I think they're better than what we expect, like people are expecting. but there's just too much difficulty at parts of their schedule that's going to catch up to them. I'm going to go 7-5 and hopefully get some momentum with an 8th win in a bowl game. But again, those are always crapshoots. We never know who's going to play. You never know who's going to opt out. I mean, Christian Mahogany opted out last year.
The night before the game.
Night before, yes. So there's lots of question marks there, but 7 wins and a potential bowl win would be a successful season. I think that's where I'm going to stick with 7-5.
So basically, you're kind of taking the positive spin and putting both what I would qualify as toss-up games in BC's favor. And I would say the 2 toss-up games on the schedule, at least, well, maybe 3, are Michigan State, Syracuse, and UNC.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll be a little more negative. I agree with you about this team being better. I think that this team is, if not better than last year, they are definitely going to be more consistent. And that is mostly a good thing, but it also is a bit of a bad thing. In that I don't think you're going to see as many like crazy explosive plays like the 4th and 21 play Castellanos had against Northern Illinois in week 1. Yeah, but I also don't think you're going to see them getting blown out by Louisville and Virginia Tech. I think you'll see closer games. Maybe they'll still lose by multiple scores, but not being absolutely embarrassed. That said, I'm still between 5-7 and 6-6. I according to Locked On Podcast Network sponsor FanDuel, Make Every Moment More, BC's win total is still at 4.5 wins. The over is -152 odds, so not great odds. I would still take the over though. The problem is 5.5 is a really tough line because looking at the schedule, I feel like Duquesne, Western Kentucky, Virginia, and Pitt are pretty likely wins. Well, Duquesne for sure, Western Kentucky definitely. Florida State, Missouri, Virginia Tech, and those are, I feel very strong that those are losses. And then games like Michigan State, Louisville, Syracuse, SMU, and North Carolina are toss-ups, and I'm leaning losses for most of them. But with Louisville, you don't really know who's going to be playing quarterback at that point because Tyler Shuck cannot stay healthy to save his life. I feel pretty good about the Syracuse game because I don't trust Fran Brown right now, and that'll be after Syracuse actually gets to meet in their schedule and they can stop beating up on terrible teams in September. SMU, I think they're going to really want revenge, and that game is down in Dallas. UNC, by that point in the season, Mac Brown is terrible in November during his second stint at UNC. So I think that BC's just with how lucky they were in 1-score games, even though not all of them were, there was a lot of extenuating circumstances in some of those games, but I think you'll see some luck swing back the other way. So I think I'm going to say 6-6. I would not be shocked by 5-7 at all. And I think they do make a bowl game. And honestly, because of the academic progress rate, even if they are 5-7, I could see them getting invited to a bowl game. It'll be interesting to see if Bill O'Brien and Blake James accept that invitation. I'm not sure if they would. Might be nice to have that opportunity to get a 6 win, even if it is a losing season in O'Brien's first year. But again, just because there are so many question marks on this team, especially on the defense, it's just hard for me to go into the season very confident that it's going to be a winning season.
Is he building a monster?
That's all I'm hearing is that Bill O'Brien is building a monster in Chestnut Hill. That's all I've heard for the last month or so.
I'm so ready for the season to start so we can actually get into real football. So Mitch, we got to head out. Where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. I had my season predictions come out on Eagle Insider today. I also will have an article ranking BC's opponents by beatability. That'll be coming up probably early next week, and then diving into Florida State. And luckily, we'll have some film on them to watch this weekend. But yeah, so just keep your eyes on Eagle Insider for everything BC this season. It's going to be a very interesting season to watch. I think, if nothing else, we can definitely say that.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Again, join Eagle Insider. We hope to see you guys over there. And for all my Eagles Nesters who have made it onto our subtext program, thank you all. If you want to join, there's still a few free subscriptions to the end of the season. Sign up is in the notes of the show. We'll be back again on Monday as we start to get ready for the Florida State game. We'll preview all of that and anything else that comes up at camp over this weekend. Thank you all, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.